All right, welcome back to Under the Desk, um, which is not a show of any kind. It's just where I happen to be right now. At this point, I saw the movie Poor Things 4, 5 days ago. I watched it on Friday. It's Tuesday, so that's got to be 4-ish days. And I wanted to record this little talk about the movie a bit after watching, just to try and let it all sit with me a bit more versus the video I did where I talked about the Alexander Payne movie, The Holdovers, the day that I watched it. I feel like with that video, I I don't know. I don't feel like I talked about the movie as much of in an interesting way as I want to. So I'm just still trying to figure out how exactly I want to go about talking about these movies because I don't want to spoil anything. I think part of the fun of going to see a movie, especially a movie like Poor Things, is to go in with an open mind and a blank canvas and then just kind of let that movie take you down the course of wherever it wants to take you, and then that, manifesting however it does inside of you. So I'm going to do my best in talking about this movie here to avoid spoilers or like talking anything super plot heavy, and more so just kind of talking through my experience with the movie and just my overall takeaway. My first Yorgos movie that I ever watched was The Lobster, and that movie became kind of a little darling for me just for its absurdity and its dry tone and sense of humor, and also just kind of how it goes about talking about life inside of the dystopia that they've created for that movie. I might talk about it in another video because I do really love that movie. It was a formative movie for me in high school. And then I watched The Favorite, which is tremendous just on plot line alone. There's a lot of stuff going on, but the driving force of that movie is really just who can give the Queen of England the best head to become her successor. And I mean, in a way, it's a superhuman type of story, but when it comes to kings and queens, I think it's just funny given how high in class they are, that the the whole fate of a country's future could rest on something so simple and primal. But at the same time, we have Anglicism because Henry hated his wife. And so when I'm talking about Yorgos Lanthimos movies and style inside of this talk as well, I'm doing so without having seen Dogtooth, which was his Academy Award nominated movie that was in Greek. He was nominated for foreign language. That was back in like 2008 or 2011. And then Killing of a Sacred Deer, I have yet to see. I was kind of laughing though because I had this thought going through about halfway through watching Poor Things, and I was sitting with it, and then I went on to Letterboxd, and then I found that someone who got to see the movie, I guess at like the New York Film Festival or something, wrote pretty much the exact same thing I was thinking through this movie, except that review, which has a lot of likes, was just describing Poor Things as Barbie for mentally ill people. And all I was thinking is that if you told Yorgos Lanthimos to make his stylized version of Barbie, it would be something like Poor Things. It's so beautifully absurd but creative and honest and debaucherous and kind of just in an interesting way. And also is just funny given some of the conversations that have come up about feminism with Barbie and Margot Robbie not getting nominations, Greta Gerwig not getting a nomination for director, even though they're nominated with Best Picture. Margot produced Barbie, and Emma Stone, producer on Poor Things with Yorgos Lanthimos in the lead role here, just absolutely brilliant as this woman who is playing this almost farcical archetype of a woman finding her way through this dark and scary world. And this dark and scary world itself is so vibrant. The set design inside of Poor Things is astounding. And all I could think of is there was one shot that gave me actual goosebumps in the movie when Emma Stone is confronted with something that is just so scary and morally frightening for her developing mind, that she's running towards it, and it's gonna put her in danger. And Gerard Carmichael collars her, and she's biting him, but she's crying. And then there's this zoom out shot on this little kind of sandy island, and just that joined with the score coming in, it was a tremendous shot, and to me the epitome of this kind of set design and production design that they were going for, with that kind of like, it's kind of oil painty. I don't really know how to describe the kind of CGI that's used to create the landscape of Poor Things and this world of Poor Things, but in its kind of cartoonish design, it joins well the zaniness of this whole experience for Emma Stone's character, which it's built already on absurdity, just in terms of, you know, the logic being somewhat sound in the process of it all, but it not being physically possible for a person like Emma Stone to exist in this movie. But all of that to say that the whole experience just felt so resonant with me, just in terms, as someone who is also, you know, still trying to navigate the world, and as you discover more of the world, you discover more of its flaws and darkness and all of these things that make the whole make you question, you know, what's the point of the whole experience, and the whole storyline kind of carries you through this philosophical quandary in a fairly basic way, you know, kind of stage play in terms of how characters so concretely symbolize a certain, you know, facet of thinking or a certain specific plot motif or direction that they're trying to take with the moral of the story. It's not a complicated narrative to break down the depths of, but that's not as a critique or anything. It's more so just kind of also in praise that it's something that's so brilliant but so simple, which itself is also an adaptation from an Alasdair Gray novel that I've never read. I'm not going to act like I've ever read it, but just the whole story itself is incredibly captivating and interesting, and Yorgos' approach, joined by Robbie Ryan's cinematography, creates this equally disorienting yet magical feeling that finding this great big world can have, on top of also the claustrophobia that can come with, you know, the perils and the dangers and all of the fears that accompany discovering and engaging deeper with this great big world. Itself just a beautiful encapsulation of growing up and trying to figure out the insanity of life. I think it's Yorgos's most in-depth movie, and in terms of everything stylistically Yorgos brings, from, you know, like the dry humor and stuff, even though I know Tony McNamara did the script here, and he's certainly a big component to this voicing as well, but like the dry wit and the particular camera shots that he gets with Robbie Ryan, even though I think Robbie Ryan only worked with Yorgos, starting with The Favorite. I don't know who the cinematographer was on The Lobster.
All right, don't worry, Pastor Ray. Future Ray here to answer this question. The guy who did the cinematography for The Lobster and also Killing of a Sacred Deer is a guy named Timios Bakatakis. Funnily enough, his filmography also includes Dogtooth, another Yorgos Lanthimos movie, and then he was also the cinematographer for 5 episodes of Aziz Ansari's Netflix series Master of None. So, yeah, that's just to answer that question. All right.
But just many of these stylistic elements that are associated with Yorgos's movies are so refined inside of Poor Things, and thus delivered in just an incredibly captivating and resonant way, at least for me. I'm yet to see the rest of the Best Picture nominees for the Oscars, but just in terms of what I've seen right now, which includes Oppenheimer, Flower Moon, Holdovers, Poor Things now, I would push Poor Things towards the top of all the pictures that have come out. And that's not to throw shade on any of these other movies. Oppenheimer itself is a great experience. Killers of the Flower Moon is a really well put together movie and galvanizing story. And then I love The Holdovers. I think it's one of the most charming and simple movies of the nominees that I've seen. But Poor Things just has every single element working so flawlessly together. The cast brings their characters out and mesh so well together with one another. And all of that flows with the cinematography and the scoring, and just also the whole kind of the whole zaniness of the world as well. You know, Willem Dafoe plays this Frankenstein's monster kind of character, while he also himself is, you know, Dr. Frankenstein, in a sense. And then Rami Youssef is great. Mark Ruffalo is good, but honestly, I think the biggest surprise that I have from watching this movie is that Mark Ruffalo got the supporting actor nomination and not Willem Dafoe. Just because Mark Ruffalo in this movie, while he's great, feels like he's just playing a bumbling, drunken, mad idiot, which I think he's good at. But I thought that Willem Dafoe put together an incredible performance as well. Also, just in how he was able to bring out the character, and on top of that, with all the makeup and stuff as well. I thought he was tremendous. Emma Stone, of course, she carries the whole movie. She's so brilliant as the character whose name I can't remember. Bella Baxter. Her name is Bella Baxter. Okay. Yeah, she's so brilliant as Bella Baxter. And then Gerard Carmichael is honestly just Gerard Carmichael in this movie. He's kind of a fun cameo in that way. If any of you are fans of his stand-up, which, by the way, tremendous stand-up. 8 is an incredible special. Nathaniel is more kind of heart-wrenching than super funny, but still good. And then his Comedy Store special is okay. Gerard's such a beautiful mind and great performer, and so it's also kind of fun to see him pop up in a movie like this. Yeah, all in all, Poor Things is one of my favorite movies of this last kind of Oscar cycle. Emma Stone is exceptional and deserved that nomination for Best Actress. This is, without a doubt, I think Yorgos' best movie to date. The Favorite, to me, it's not one of my favorites. I just look back at it very funnily based on my main takeaway from that movie. The Lobster is great, and I still haven't seen Dogtooth or Killing of a Sacred Deer, which I will hope to remedy at some point soon. Good script by Tony McNamara. Excellent cinematography by Robbie Ryan, and just it's all in all such a magical experience. And in all honesty, I hate that I said all of these words when I'm probably just gonna encapsulate it best in a single sentence here at the end, and it's essentially just an existentialist's fairy tale. In that has so many different areas that it can investigate about human nature and society, and it does so real nicely. It's a nice coming of age story that bounces from point to point to point to point, not in like a farcical Candide kind of way, but in that way of just trying to figure out the madness that you are swept into, with an added twist, given what made Bella Baxter. So I highly recommend watching Poor Things. Um,
All right, Future Ray, with one more thing that I didn't talk about in this, which is that there is lots of sex inside of this movie. So it's definitely for more mature audiences, but it doesn't at all really bring up this weird conversation that's being had about the necessity of sex scenes and narrative. It makes sense inside of the story of Bella Baxter, as well as also in the aesthetic and themes that Yorgos Lanthimos tends to bring to his movies. But I figure might as well just mention that before some 13-year-old who watches this puts this movie on for their parents and blames me for that impending conversation. It's not my fault. It's Yorgos.
Again, I'm still trying to figure out the best way to talk about these movies because I don't want to just start talking about plot and stuff. To me, these movies are more in the story and the composition, how it all comes together as an experience, and trying to talk about that versus the specifics of each and everything that happens inside of the movie. So if any of you watched Poor Things, I'd love to hear what you thought about it in the comments below. Those are my thoughts on Poor Things. It's an excellent movie. Slam out of the park for Yorgos and co. And yeah, way better than Barbie.
Oh, but before I go, Future Ray here to talk about one more thing with this movie in regards to a lot of the more negative reviews that I was seeing from people on Letterboxd. I won't really post any of them here. You can go read them for yourself if you like. I just don't want to really put anyone on a firing block or anything like that one for the most part. I just kind of want to talk about a little frustration I have with how people apply certain lenses of viewing and dissecting a movie. Obviously, this being a movie directed by a man, written by a man, very from the mind of a man, focused on this coming of age of a woman. There are obviously fair critiques that can be applied in terms of how it captures the female experience, so on and so forth, and whether it fully does or not. I think that those are fine critiques to apply to a movie like this. But there are other kinds of analyses and takeaways from this movie that I was seeing from some of the lower reviews that were irking me, just in the way that they all were reading as if when watching the movie, that what's being depicted is to be taken at face value, which I'm not sure that there's anything inside of the movie that really tells you that it's straightforward beyond just the kind of the dry dialogue. But I don't think that really is in the direction of metaphor and so on and so forth. Yeah, there are lots of things with this movie, including with Mark Ruffalo's character growing attracted to the infantile Bella Baxter, where you should feel uncomfortable, and the movie depicting that, I don't think, is an endorsement of the character's actions in any way, considering the path you see his character go down of destruction, falling to his vices, and how just super flawed his character is overall, which to me adds to the commentary involved of a kind of man who would fall for someone as infantile in that moment as Bella Baxter, versus it being ringing endorsement to go and find young women or whatever. And then of course, there are valid critiques too in the idea of the sexual liberation that Bella goes through inside of this movie, and obviously how in ways that can cater to the male gaze, so on and so forth. But there are loads of moments inside of this movie where you are going to feel uncomfortable, and I think the movie is fairly clear in creating room for that discomfort within the audiences. Considering, in some of the sex scenes with Bella, they're accompanied by these shrieking violins, which in one capacity could be just exuding primal excitement, but also just harmonically, they're fairly dissonant. And so it also causes this sense of unease inside of this ritual that Bella is putting herself through time and time again, mostly at her exploitation, but in a way that she might also be construing her own self agency from it. And all of this is to say that at least to me, this movie really tries and captures the complicated nature of not only the female experience but the human experience. And while there are probably other movies that could give a more authentic look at womanhood and things like that, in the kind of zany, cartoony, fairy tale like structure of this movie, I think that all of the themes and choices and plot and such, they all serve the overall piece, versus it being any kind of endorsement of how to live your life, so on and so forth, even if the conclusion kind of points to a particular moral path. Because movies don't have to be straightforward. They don't have to say what is clearly right, what is clearly wrong. There is some onus on us as an audience to recognize our own moral findings and moral limits, boundaries, whatever. And sometimes a movie might want to play those and almost remind us, like, hey, yeah, this is weird. Or if an older man is going for a childlike woman, be like, wow, this guy might be trouble. And then in the whole movie, his character does turn out to be trouble. So I don't know. I think people are allowed their opinions of the movie, and I do think that there are certain critiques that can be applied, especially, like I said, considering this is a movie made by men that is focused on the female experience in some capacity. But I do think it's unfair to project certain lenses into the piece and really force our own perspectives onto the piece when there is clear intention in each decision that is being made, which, I mean, if the conclusion you still come down to is that it's all done in an almost chauvinistic kind of way, then this addendum doesn't really change any minds, I don't think. To me, movies should be given a certain allowance to breathe and maybe do things that we might not necessarily agree with, and then how they handle that is part of the challenge as well. But at least to me, I don't really think Poor Things was trying to be a feminine mystique, but in the facets of life and of humanhood as well that the story tries to cover. I don't really think there's an outlying piece to any of it. Yeah, I just wanted to add a quick little thing about that, because while people are allowed their opinions, I do kind of just get frustrated when sometimes the perspective that they might have onto the movie in a way misses the point. Like there was one I saw that was saying that the aesthetics and the landscapes did not contribute to the story in any way, which is just flat wrong. But I don't know. I can't change minds and hearts across the sea. Yeah, no, that's all I wanted to add. All right, see ya.